I've long felt that Harry and Meghan haven't truly been together as a couple for quite some time. They appear together for photo opportunities to maintain the brand Sussex image, but the tension between them is unmistakable. As for Harry, I don't believe he has any real intention of reining Meghan in. He should have done so earlier, especially regarding the children, whose public appearance seems tied to her return to Instagram. There is one name that repeatedly surfaces whenever well-informed royal insiders discuss what's truly happening. Inside the Sussex marriage, Angela Levin. Harry's biographer has spent more one-on-one time with Prince Harry than nearly any other journalist. She has followed this story from the very beginning and has quietly but firmly maintained that something is seriously wrong behind the carefully curated facade of their life in Montecito. Now, it seems the rest of the world is finally catching up. What we're examining is not tabloid gossip or baseless speculation. It is a growing body of evidence drawn from royal commentators, sources close to the couple, and Levin's deep, first-hand knowledge of Harry. This evidence paints a picture of a marriage under immense strain, a union in which the two partners want fundamentally different things, where the children have become bargaining chips, where one appears to be spiraling and the other seems trapped. Angela Levin has not held back. She has described Harry as crumbling, saying he has no real power in the relationship. According to her, decisions come from Meghan, who writes his speeches, moves him from place to place, and directs him like a child. Those are her words, not mine. The central question she has raised, and one that now hangs over every public appearance, Instagram post, and attempt to stay relevant, is this: how long can a man live like that? The cracks are no longer subtle. Even the mainstream media, which spent years tiptoeing around the issue, is finally being forced to acknowledge what those paying close attention have known for a long time. The Sussex marriage is not the fairy tale they have been selling. The Ricci warning signs have been there all along. To understand why this moment is so significant, you have to look at the timeline. Ever since Harry and Meghan stepped back from royal duties and moved to California, an unspoken rule existed in much of the British press. You could criticize their business ventures, their feuds, and their PR missteps, but you did not question the state of their marriage. The reason was simple: legal fear. Prince Harry had spent years suing media outlets, and the threat of yet another lawsuit over reporting on his personal relationship made even senior editors extremely cautious. As a result, a collective silence took hold. Commentators who knew better chose their words carefully. Tension might be whispered, but stronger terms like trapped were avoided. Then the evidence became impossible to ignore. Separate appearances, telling body language, reports of diverging goals and ambitions, and a growing financial desperation pulling them in opposite directions. When even outlets historically sympathetic to the couple began admitting things were not well, it was clear a turning point had been reached. Angela Levin saw this coming years ago. As Harry's biographer, she has studied him in depth and watched the warning signs accumulate. She has spoken openly about the fundamental incompatibility at the heart of the relationship. Harry, she says, craves privacy, family reconciliation, and a return home. Meghan wants global scale, constant visibility, and reinvention. Those two visions, Levin has made clear, cannot coexist. And that fundamental clash lies at the center of everything now unfolding. The current crises facing Harry and Meghan, from Hollywood's rejection and financial turmoil to their frantic search for relevance, are not merely a string of unrelated failures. They are the visible symptoms of a marriage that is quietly tearing itself apart from within. As for Harry, it appears he has no real intention of reining Meghan in. He should have done so long ago regarding their children. This issue only intensified in 2025 when Meghan returned to Instagram. As Allison has rightly pointed out, we have now seen the children's faces from multiple angles. We can piece it together. We know what Archie and Lilibet look like. Let us set the scene carefully. This story did not begin with a dramatic public clash, but with something far more subtle. A photograph, followed by another, and then another. Each image was slightly more revealing than the last. Posted with perfect timing and meticulous curation, none individually crossed the line that Harry has always insisted upon. Yet together, they have inexorably achieved exactly what he has long claimed to fear. When Meghan returned to Instagram, she brought with her a clear strategy. That strategy has become increasingly obvious. The gradual, deliberate introduction of Archie and Lilibet, now 5 and 3 years old, respectively, into her public-facing brand. Not all at once, and never in a way that could be labeled. An outright violation of the privacy principles Harry has publicly championed. Instead, it has been done by degrees. A glimpse here, a silhouette there, an angle that reveals just a little more each time. This is what royal insiders have described as grandmother's footsteps. You turn around, and someone has moved. Closer. You look away, and they creep forward again. By the time you notice how much ground has been covered, it feels too late to object. The children's faces have now been revealed from multiple angles and in various contexts. The public now knows what Archie looks like. The public now knows what Lilibet looks like. It has happened so incrementally that no single post can be singled out as the moment it went too far. As a result, Harry, the man whose entire public identity has been built around protecting his children from the kind of media intrusion he believes destroyed his mother, finds himself in an impossible position. He can either confront his wife publicly, confirming the tensions everyone has been reporting, or remain silent and watch one of his most deeply held principles be dismantled, post by post, before the eyes of the world. Angela Levin has described this dynamic with painful clarity. She portrays Harry as a man who has diminished, who has lost himself, and who no longer appears to be the one making decisions in his own household. Viewed through this lens, the situation with the children becomes less confusing and more tragic. This is not a man who has changed his views on privacy. This is a man who no longer seems to possess the authority within his marriage to enforce them. Harry and Meghan have, in many ways, created an even thicker bubble of mystery around their children, fueled by surrogacy rumors, questions about their ages, whereabouts, and identities, because they continue to play games with the truth. The children have been weaponized. Harry has reportedly used them as leverage against his father, while Meghan showcases them strategically on Instagram. Yet, this tension around Meghan's use of the children on social media is only one layer of a deeper and more troubling pattern. Commentators close to the story describe something that goes far beyond a simple marital disagreement over privacy. They point to a calculated, consistent pattern in which the Sussex children have been used as strategic instruments in multiple directions. On one side, there is Meghan's Instagram approach, the slow reveal, the brand building, the careful drip of imagery designed to keep the children, and, by extension, the Sussex brand, relevant in the aspirational lifestyle space. The children are treated as valuable assets, photogenic, royal-blooded additions to her public image. On the other, and far more disturbing, are the suggestions that the children's mystique has also been used as a tool of leverage against the royal family itself. The deliberate ambiguity surrounding their births, the strategic use of privacy, and the implication that access to the grandchildren can be granted or withheld, depending on circumstances, all point to a calculated power. Play. The family has made clear that they are willing to offer something in return. Angela Levin has not held back on the matter. She has spoken extensively about how Prince Harry's relationship with his father, King Charles, has been strained not only by the public disclosures of recent years, but also by the genuine pain of a grandfather who has very limited access to his grandchildren. She has been unequivocal. The responsibility for this situation lies with choices made in Montecito, not in London. What makes it especially painful, Levin has argued forcefully, is the stark contrast with Harry's own childhood. For years, Harry has publicly mourned the loss of his mother and lamented the emotional distance he felt within the royal family. He has presented himself as someone who deeply understands the harm caused when children are denied the warmth and closeness they deserve. Yet in his own family, his children appear to be used as tools to serve various agendas. The man who claims to understand childhood pain better than most seems either unable or unwilling to prevent it. As one observer noted, "When I think of all the stories of Harry talking about the childhood pain and suffering he endured, his family never did anything to him like what he's done to his own children." This has now become an unavoidable part of the narrative. What is particularly striking is how long the mainstream media avoided addressing it. That reluctance may be the most damaging revelation of all, because it strikes at the very foundation of Harry's public image. His entire post-royal identity, built on mental health advocacy, trauma-informed parenting, and claims of breaking generational cycles, rests on the premise that he knows better than his own upbringing did what children truly need. However, the evidence of recent years tells a different story. The children have been used as props for brand promotion and as leverage in family negotiations. Their births, appearances, and identities have been handled in ways that fuel confusion, speculation, and the intense public scrutiny Harry has always said he despises. Far from being protected from the media, they have been managed through it. Angela Levin has been direct on this point as well. She has described Harry as appearing to be crumbling, suggesting he is not making meaningful decisions in his own household. The man who fought so publicly and expensively for his children's privacy has ended up with the opposite outcome, and seems powerless to stop it. For a long time, mainstream media hesitated to explore this territory. Legal concerns were genuine and caution was understandable. But there was also another factor. The narrative of Harry and Meghan as victims of the press, the royal family, and institutional racism had become so firmly established in some circles that challenging it felt risky. Suggesting that Harry might bear responsibility for his children's situation often invited accusations of cruelty or bias against a man who had already suffered. That protective shield is now dissolving. The evidence has become too clear, and the contrast between what Harry claims to believe and what is actually happening to his children is too glaring to ignore. When someone of Angela Levin's credentials and intimate knowledge of Harry states plainly that his own family never did to him what he is now doing to his children, it is not mere tabloid gossip. It is the assessment of the person who, arguably, knows him better than any other journalist. Many who initially supported Harry and Meghan did so because they believed the woe is me story about the horrors of royal life. But as more people speak out and more stories emerge, it is becoming harder to maintain that view. Harry and Meghan are the common denominator in all of it. As Harry's biographer, Angela Levin had extraordinary access. She spent time with him, observed him closely, and listened as he spoke about his life, family, fears, and hopes. She once described the man she met as curious, warm, funny, and loyal, which makes her current assessment all the more powerful. The Harry she speaks of today is not the man she came to know. In her view, he has been systematically diminished. a man under Meghan's spell and control, doing what she tells him to do. Unable to stand up for himself, Harry appears to be crumbling under the dynamic in his marriage. With the quiet certainty of someone who has observed this situation for years, Angela Levin states that the decisions in the Sussex household do not come from Harry. She has also spoken with characteristic bluntness about Meghan's attitude toward the royal family. According to Levin, Meghan shows not even a hint of gratitude for the platform the royals gave her, for the extraordinary resources placed at her disposal, for a wedding that cost well over £100 million, or for the global status she gained overnight by marrying into one of the world's most famous families. Instead, Levin has observed that Meghan seems to favor spite. She has carefully documented how that spite has been aimed at the institution, at individual family members, and ultimately at the life Harry once had. Levin's verdict on the marriage itself is equally direct. She has called it the beginning of the end. She describes Harry as someone who simply does what Meghan tells him, with no real power of his own. In language that leaves little room for misunderstanding, she makes clear that this is not a partnership of equals. It is a relationship in which one person holds complete authority over the other. And that person is not the one with royal blood. What gives Levin's voice particular weight is that she did not set out to become a critic of the Sussexes. She genuinely admired Harry, wrote about him with sympathy and nuance, and has watched with evident sadness as the man she once knew has retreated further and further from view. Her criticism stems not from hostility, but from having known him, seen what he was, and now seeing with painful clarity how much has been lost. She doesn't know how to be anyone, Levin says. She's got no personality herself, so she just latches onto something and says, "Right, this is what I'm going to be right now." Then she gets bored of it and moves on. She doesn't give herself the chance to build a real self. What we are witnessing, with the children, her career, and her collapsing Hollywood relationships, is not a series of separate crises. It is a consistent pattern, one that those who have followed Meghan Markle closely for years have described with remarkable consistency. The pattern begins with identification. Meghan spots something, a person, a platform, a relationship, or an identity she wants to inhabit. She pursues it with intense energy and charm, making herself seem indispensable. There is often a period, sometimes quite long, when everything appears to be working. Then, for reasons that are often hard to pinpoint exactly, things begin to unravel. The energy shifts. The relationship sours. The identity no longer fits, and a new one is needed. This cycle has repeated with friendships, leaving a long trail of former close friends who drifted away or were pushed aside, professional relationships, agents, staff, and Hollywood power players who were courted and then apparently shut their doors, and identities, actress, humanitarian, royal, lifestyle, guru, fashion icon. Each one is tried on, worn for a season, and eventually discarded. Angela Levin identified this tendency early. She has spoken about Meghan's complete lack of self-awareness, how she pursues things with absolute conviction, often ignoring the advice of those around her, and then cannot understand why they fail. Levin has noted that Meghan is not lacking in intelligence. On the contrary, she is clever, but, as Levin puts it, not quite clever enough. She lacks the self-awareness to recognize her own limitations, which Levin describes as a genuinely terrible place to be. This relentless cycle of identification, pursuit, overreach, and collapse is now playing out in the most serious arena of all: her marriage, her children, and her family. The quiet question Angela Levin has been asking longer than most is whether Harry is simply the latest in a long line of people who got too close and failed to see what was happening to them until it was too late. Harry comes across as a simp who goes along with everything his wife says and does. He appears to be a weak man living under her thumb. Meanwhile, Meghan is the architect of her own undoing. Every major fallout she has experienced stems from her own actions, yet she consistently points the finger at everyone else. It is important at this point to be clear about something. Harry is not a passive victim in this story. He is a grown man who has made a series of deliberate, consequential, and often irreversible choices that have led him to his current position. He chose to leave. He chose to speak out. He chose to pursue legal action. And he chose, seemingly with genuine enthusiasm, to align himself with projects and ventures that have not served him well. If he now finds himself in a dynamic where his wife appears to hold most of the cards, that too is the direct result of decisions he made. That said, Angela Levin has spoken about Harry's situation with notable compassion. She has observed, and this aligns with accounts from those who knew him before, that the young man who emerged from his early 20s was not someone naturally inclined to be led. By many accounts, he was stubborn, independent-minded, and often frustrating to those around him precisely because of his strong determination to chart his own course. The Harry that Levin describes today, a man who seems unable to make decisions, who simply goes along with whatever his wife wants, and who appears diminished, is, in her telling, a fundamentally changed person. The central question that lingers over the entire narrative is how that transformation occurred. What happened to the strong-willed young man who once insisted on doing things his own way? Equally telling is the specific nature of Harry's unhappiness. According to multiple people familiar with the situation, it is not a vague or generalized discontent. He is not simply unhappy with life in California or with his diminished public role. His unhappiness is precise and identifiable. He is homesick. He misses his family. He misses Britain. He misses the sense of purpose that came with his military service and royal duties. Above all, he appears to miss the person he once was. Meghan's ambitions, the lifestyle brand, the Hollywood comeback, the constant social media presence, actively block him from reclaiming any of those things. Every Instagram post featuring the children drives him further from the privacy he craves. Every public rejection from the Hollywood establishment serves as a painful reminder that the trade he made, exchanging his royal life for hers, has not delivered what was promised. Each desperate attempt to stay relevant in a world that is growing indifferent to the Sussex brand chips away at what remains of his dignity. Angela Levin has not delivered this assessment with cruelty, but with the weary insight of someone who saw the trajectory from a long way off. It's the scattergun approach. And it's even talking about Meghan. You know she needs an agent. Meghan has had agents. Meghan refuses to listen. She will only listen to herself. She reminds me of a child with a dressing-up box. Tonight, Matthew, I'm going to be a star. This is Meghan. Every single week or every single month, she changes. What am I going to be this month? When you step back from the individual setbacks, the collapsed agent relationships, the unclear Netflix future, the underperforming. As Everbrand, the lifestyle show that failed to meet expectations, what emerges is not merely a string of bad decisions. It is the absence of any coherent strategy whatsoever. Levin has highlighted Meghan's pattern of overriding advice, refusing to listen to those around her, and proceeding on the conviction that she alone knows best, even when the evidence consistently suggests otherwise. In the world she is trying to conquer, Hollywood agents, streaming deals, brand partnerships, and high-level philanthropy, credibility, patience, and consistency are everything. The ability to build something steadily over time without derailing it through constant crises of self-presentation is essential. Yet, by virtually every credible account of her professional life, Meghan lacks that patience. She wants the recognition before she has built the body of work. She wants credibility before she has earned it. She attempts to position herself simultaneously as a television producer, fashion icon, humanitarian, and returning actress, all without an agent to advise her on what is actually viable. The loss of high-level representation, particularly from someone at the very top of Hollywood's power structure, is far more than an inconvenience. It is the kind of rupture from which careers in that world rarely recover. The reported reasons for the fallout echo the same pattern described by former allies, colleagues, and friends who eventually found themselves on the receiving end of Meghan's shifting favor. What remains strategically is insiders have described it as momentum without direction, frantic activity that yields no lasting results, and a constant reinvention that somehow leaves no enduring impression. At the heart of it all is a marriage in which Harry, who shows little interest in building a lifestyle brand, playing celebrity roles, or making cameo appearances, finds himself obligated to participate in projects that serve none of his genuine needs. As Angela Levin has observed with her usual precision, he has no power. And a man with no power in his own life is, in every meaningful sense, trapped. They cannot credibly claim to be philanthropists. They pass on a few donations, given by others, collect awards for being humanitarians, and then move on. A process that many find deeply distasteful. They attached themselves to various causes, created the Parents Network, staged a couple of publicity events within a year, accepted an award, and then quietly abandoned the initiative. There is a particular cruelty to performative philanthropy. It is not only dishonest, it actively harms the people and causes it claims to support. In Harry and Meghan's case, the gap between the compassionate image they project and the reality of their charitable efforts has become impossible to ignore. The problem is structural. As Angela Levin has clearly stated, you cannot be a true philanthropist without your own money. The great historical benefactors like Carnegie earned respect because they possessed vast wealth and gave it away freely without expecting anything in return. Harry and Meghan represent the exact opposite. They require money to maintain the appearance of giving it away. This makes every charitable engagement inherently transactional. They need the charities for credibility far more than the charities need them for funds. The recurring pattern is now well documented. Latch onto a cause, generate publicity, collect an award, and then disengage. The organizations they briefly champion receive a surge of media attention that ultimately benefits the Sussex brand. Once the photos are taken, the awards accepted, and the social media content posted, the relationship fades. The cause continues. Without them, the Sussexes move on to the next opportunity, and the cycle repeats. Levin has also highlighted Meghan's apparent lack of gratitude and tendency toward spitefulness, which extends to this arena as well. Performative philanthropy carries an implicit contempt for the public, an assumption that people won't see through the carefully staged appearances, polished press releases, and photogenic hospital visits. Angela Levin has been unusually direct in calling this out, refusing the cautious hedging typical of most mainstream commentary. She finds it not just unconvincing, but genuinely objectionable. There is also growing unease surrounding the Invictus Games. The original founders and architects who built the event from the ground up have begun quietly distancing themselves. When those who poured years of their lives into a project start to walk away, it raises serious questions, particularly around financial transparency, governance, and how funds are managed. These concerns are coming not from critics of the games, but from people who genuinely care about its original mission. Beyond the professional and reputational issues, many worry that Harry and Meghan's ongoing games with the media have placed an even bigger target on their children's backs. From the moment Archie and Lilibet were born, the couple's lack of transparency sparked endless speculation and intrusion. In trying to control the narrative, they have created an even larger bubble around their family. At the deepest level, the real stakes are not careers, money, or public image, but the children. Archie Harrison, who turned 6 this year, and Lilibet Diana, who recently turned 4, never chose any of this. They did not ask to be born into such extraordinary complexity, and they are now being shaped by decisions made by 2 adults who often appear to be moving in completely opposite directions. Angela Levin has addressed the situation of the children in this marriage with particular gravity, noting what may be its most damaging aspect. In her analysis of the Sussexes' situation, Angela Levin makes one particularly sharp observation. If the marriage were ever to break down, Meghan would prove a formidable opponent in any ensuing conflict. Levin portrays her as someone who would go to extreme lengths to be as difficult as possible, with the children becoming the ultimate leverage in such a scenario. She draws uncomfortable parallels to the most bitter divorces, where children are weaponized. Even without a formal fracture, however, the children are already being used, not as weapons in open legal warfare, but as currency in a slower, more subtle game. Their names, images, and royal connections are being quietly monetized, from candles, named after them, to brands built on their reflected status. Instagram posts featuring their faces generate engagement and help soften Meghan's public image. Commentators like Angela Levin and others have expressed clear discomfort at the fact that Archie and Lilibet, aged 5 and 4, cannot consent to any of this. They are too young to understand that their royal-adjacent identity is being leveraged to sell products, or that their father, who has spoken so passionately about shielding them from such exposure, seems powerless to stop it. The long-term legacy implications are also significant. One day, Archie and Lilibet will be old enough to search their own names online. They will encounter the photographs, brand partnerships, public debates surrounding their births, endless speculation, and years of Instagram content. They will discover that their very existence was carefully managed as a PR asset. How they will feel about those choices, and about the parents who made them, remains an open question, but it looms over the entire situation. Harry's stated reasons for leaving the royal family: to give his children a different, calmer childhood free from the pressures and pain he experienced, have not come to fruition as promised. Instead of quiet, private, protected lives, Archie and Lilibet are growing up with their faces gradually introduced to a global Instagram audience, their names attached to luxury brands, and their parents' relationship, whatever its true nature, serving as constant public backdrop. Angela Levin's assessment of Harry as a father carries some compassion, yet it is unflinching in highlighting the stark contradiction between what he claimed to want for his children and the reality they are living. Levin also recalls how Meghan was turned down for a role as UN Women Ambassador. As detailed in Tom Bower's book, the decision came after a senior figure observed her speech and concluded that Meghan was fundamentally focused on herself. Once seen, this trait becomes difficult to ignore. For its part, the royal family has observed these developments with a mixture of relief, exhaustion, and quiet vindication. The firm boundaries drawn during the Sussex exit, including the rejection of any half-in, half-out arrangement, have been proven wise. The late Queen recognized that no workable compromise was possible with such a volatile dynamic, and subsequent events have validated her judgment. William and Catherine have largely disengaged. By all accounts, they do not track the Sussexes' activities, monitor their Instagram posts, or concern themselves with each new brand launch. Their attention remains on their own family, their work, and a deeply rooted sense of public duty. One grounded in consistent service, unglamorous commitments, and trust built over decades rather than manufactured overnight. The contrast between the two couples is evident to anyone willing to see it. King Charles finds himself in a more painful position. As a grandfather with limited contact with two of his grandchildren, and as a father who has witnessed his younger son's choices inflict significant damage on the family and the institution, he continues to extend olive branches for reconciliation, within clear limits. Those limits have been repeatedly tested by ongoing developments from Montecito. Angela Levin has spoken sympathetically about Charles's genuine anguish. A king who loves his son, desires a relationship with his grandchildren, yet must also protect the monarchy his son has publicly criticized. The family's firm boundaries, she notes, are not acts of cruelty, but necessary self-preservation. An institution that allowed itself to be continually held hostage by threats of revelations, lawsuits, or allegations could not endure. The palace's disciplined public silence and refusal to engage with the drama reflect this strategic restraint. Let me know if you'd like any adjustments, such as making it shorter, more formal, or toned differently. Responding to provocations on Instagram is, in itself, a form of acknowledgement. It signals, we are not engaging in this game, we are not operating on this timeline. We refuse to be pulled into an endless cycle of claims and counterclaims that only benefits those who thrive on perpetual conflict. The royal family's greatest strength in this situation is their disciplined willingness to simply wait. And with each passing month, what they are waiting for becomes clearer. The unsustainable nature of Harry and Meghan's approach is revealing itself. All Harry and Meghan seem to do is take, demand, and want, with little to no return for anyone involved. Once you recognize this pattern, it becomes impossible to ignore. Every event they attend and every speech they deliver reinforces it. Whether it's George Soros reportedly backing their Australia tour, for reasons that remain unclear, or any other initiative, they consistently center everything on themselves. This is not about any single failed relationship, professional setback, or collapsed charity project. It is a consistent, long-term pattern that Angela Levin has tracked with meticulous, forensic attention over many years. The pattern is clear. People invest in Harry and Meghan, financially, emotionally, and reputationally, and receive little to nothing in return. Not necessarily because the couple is deliberately deceptive, though some argue they are, but because they fundamentally misrepresent what they can actually deliver, often even to themselves. They present a compelling package: royal credibility, a global platform, humanitarian gravitas, and an aspirational lifestyle, and collect the investments that come with that image. Eventually, reality reasserts itself. The list of those who entered their orbit with high expectations and left disappointed has grown remarkably long. Former agents, high-turnover staff, friends, philanthropic partners, Hollywood allies, the Kardashians, who boosted the As Ever brand, Lauren Sanchez, whose birthday party became a Sussex spectacle, and Anna Wintour, who has notably kept her distance. Angela Levin's implicit warning is that this behavior is unlikely to change. The self-awareness needed to pause, listen to advice, acknowledge limitations, and build something sustainable, rather than chasing the next hit of attention, simply isn't there. Without it, the cycle repeats. New people are drawn in, briefly dazzled, and ultimately disappointed. New causes are embraced and abandoned. New identities are tried on and discarded. Meanwhile, Harry appears to diminish with each failed reinvention, becoming less and less like the person he once was. The real caution is aimed at everyone still willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. Every benefactor who believes their investment will be the exception. Every editor running another, glowing profile, and every organization that lends its name to a Sussex partnership. The evidence is clear, the track record is established, and at a certain point, continued surprise at the outcome stops being surprise at all. As one observer noted, after a while it becomes obvious that Harry and Meghan only take. Meghan was reportedly turned down for a UN Women Ambassador role, as detailed in Tom Bower's book. Tyler Perry and Victoria Jackson, millionaires who provided them with homes and support, tell a similar story. Tyler Perry has since grown, noticeably quiet. It's only a matter of time before more people see them for who they truly are. The relationship between the Sussexes and the wider royal family has settled into an uneasy limbo. Neither full estrangement nor reconciliation. It is a suspended, uncomfortable state, maintained because neither side can find a resolution that doesn't carry unacceptable costs. From the outside, Harry shows increasing signs of yearning and homesickness. Life in California has not delivered what was hoped. His visits to Britain now feel transient, quick in-and-out trips without fanfare or any sense of lasting peace with his separation from home. She noted that, on some level, Harry wants to return to the family, but the conditions required for such a reconciliation are incompatible with the life he and Meghan are currently living. From the royal family's perspective, the approach is one of cautious, arm's-length observation. They watch events unfold, take note, but do not engage. William, in particular, has made his position clear through his actions rather than words. A distinctly royal approach. The bridge has not been burned, but it will not be rebuilt on the Sussexes' terms. Those close to him describe William as someone who does not forget what was said and done, yet is prepared to be patient, knowing that time is on his side. Hanchifo. Levin has suggested that the royal family's stance, though quiet, is coherent and consistent. They cannot simply welcome back a couple who publicly aired the family's most private matters and who continue to trade on the very royal identity they claim to have rejected through Instagram posts, brand partnerships, and public appearances. At the heart of the Sussex project lies a fundamental contradiction. They left because of the institution, yet they now sell products and build brands that capitalize on their royal adjacent status and their children's names. The royal family is under no obligation to ignore this reality. What makes the current moment especially notable is the shift in public sympathy. The wave of goodwill that once flowed strongly toward the Sussexes, at least in certain circles, has begun to turn. Many who initially gave them the benefit of the doubt, accepted their narrative, and sympathized with their claimed struggles, are now reviewing the accumulating evidence and reaching different conclusions. Angela Levin was never among those who offered unconditional support. However, the fact that she is now being joined by voices from across a broader spectrum marks a significant development. They want to be celebrities, but they lack the talent for it, Levin has observed. They can't sing, they can't dance, they can't act. So they pretend to be humanitarians or pretend to be royals, and it simply doesn't work. She noted that Harry and Meghan's tour of Australia failed to sell out, and that the situation is likely to worsen. Stepping back, this story ultimately concerns the widening gap between who Harry and Meghan believe themselves to be and how the world actually sees them. That gap has grown to extraordinary proportions and is ultimately unsustainable. Angela Levin has described this situation with weary precision. She points out that Meghan has shown no hint of gratitude, not for what the royal family gave her, not for what Harry gave up, and not for the extraordinary platform she was handed. In Levin's analysis, this absence of gratitude is not merely a character flaw, it is the visible symptom of a deeper conviction that everything she received was simply her due. She believed she was not elevated by the institution, but was doing it a favor by joining it. This unshakable belief has shaped every decision, relationship, and strategy that followed. The financial picture is now becoming increasingly pressing. Tours cost more than they generate. The brand has failed to deliver expected commercial returns. The Netflix deal is uncertain at best. The agent has departed, staff numbers are minimal, and the charity has faced unanswered questions. The couple, who once spoke confidently about their financial independence from the royal family, now appear, according to those closely tracking the situation, in a far more precarious position than their public language of independence suggested. Yet, despite all this, the reinvention continues. Instagram posts keep appearing. Brand appearances are scheduled. Charitable photo opportunities are pursued. The image of a thriving couple who have everything under control and are exactly where they want to be is maintained with remarkable persistence, even as contradictory evidence mounts. Angela Levin has said that everything always comes out in the wash, speaking with the quiet confidence of someone who has observed this story for a long time. The question is not if the full picture will become clear to everyone, but when. The trajectory is visible. The direction is clear. Harry is a man who gave up everything for a vision of the future that has not materialized. Meghan is a woman running out of arenas in which to reinvent herself. Meanwhile, their children, Archie and Lilibet, are growing up in the midst of it all, maturing quickly and soon old enough to understand far more than their parents might wish. Angela Levin has watched these events unfold and has warned, with the precision and authority earned through years of close observation, that what we are witnessing is not merely a temporary dip in fortune. It is the logical outcome of choices made years ago by people who were absolutely convinced they knew best. Before we finish, I'd like to ask you something I think about often. If you watched someone you loved make the same choices Harry has, walking away from family, country, and purpose, and you could clearly see that the life they chose instead is not bringing them happiness, what would you do? Would you speak up, stay silent, or simply hope they eventually find their way back? And perhaps the more important question, is there a version of this story that ends well for Archie and Lilibet? Two young children growing up in Montecito, surrounded by names, titles, and a legacy they cannot yet fully understand. I genuinely hope so. But I believe the answer depends on whether the adults in their lives are willing to put the children first, not just for public appearances, but truly first.